Hello, everyone. Welcome to Generation Hope's webinar on our newest report, Hire Together, the Impact of a College Degree for Young Parents. It's wonderful to be here with you all today, and we hope you enjoyed our Hispanic Heritage Month playlist. We're really excited about being able to honor this month and all of the wonderful things that it celebrates, and so we hope you enjoyed that. We are also really excited about our newest report, Hire Together, the Impact of a College Degree for Young Parents. And that's what we're going to be diving into today. So really excited to be able to do that with you. As you all know, it was released just last week, and we've been really excited to be talking to media and different folks about the insights that it has. And today is really an opportunity for us to do that a bit more. We do hope you have had an opportunity to take a look at the report. But just in case you haven't, we are going to drop a link to it in the chat right now to make sure that you have it at your fingertips. My name is Nicole Lynn Lewis, and I'm the founder and CEO of Generation Hope. And today you're also going to hear from my colleague, Caroline Griswold-Short, who is our Director of Programming and who led the charge on this exciting project. We also have some special guests who you'll hear from in a few moments. They're really the rock stars of today's discussion. 4 of our amazing alumni, or actually it might be 5, of our amazing alumni who will give voice to the data and main findings that we share and Hire Together. And our moderator for that exciting panel discussion is also a wonderful supporter of our work here at Generation Hope, and we'll introduce her to you in a moment. So before we review what we've learned from Hire Together, we just want to spend a few minutes on how this project came to be. And so going to share that with you, but also wanted to let you know, you'll see just a quick note, if you want to access closed captioning, you'll see some instructions for how to do that in the chat right now. So at Generation Hope, we have the honor of working directly with young parents as they work toward their college degrees through our signature Scholar program. And in the past 12 years of running the Scholar program, we've learned so much from our students and our alums, lessons about what needs to change when it comes to people's perceptions about what's possible for this population, as well as what needs to change within higher education and in our K-12 systems to ensure that they succeed. And I can give you the Cliff Notes version, which is, it's a lot. It's a lot of change that needs to happen. So we know that change can come from demonstrating impact and telling stories. And during 2020, through discussions with our board and our staff, our current scholars and our alums, we identified the alumni story as being an important component of our 2024 strategic plan. We're going to drop our 2024 strategic plan in the chat for you as well, so you can see how this fits into our communications priorities over the next 3 years. So be on the lookout for that. This report emerged as a critical piece of this work, and we were excited to begin collecting data from all of our alumni since our inception this summer. So today we're going to provide a brief overview of our Scholar program. We're going to dive deeper into the report and its findings, and then unpack those findings with our Rockstar panel that I mentioned earlier. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Caroline, to get us started.
Thanks, Nicole. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today to learn more about this important research. So I'm just going to share a little bit about our program so you understand some of the supports that our young parents receive while they're with us as scholars. So the Scholar program is our flagship program. It has been running since 2011 and was really built out of Nicole's experience as a young teen mother. She saw, how difficult it was to get a college degree and wanted it to be easier and more common for other teen parents to be able to do the same thing. So our program really focuses on the importance of holistic support. We recognize that financial support is great, but if your tuition's paid and there's no one to help you figure out what classes to take and no one to talk to when you're having a hard time, that's not going to be enough. And then on the other hand, of course, if you have all this emotional support in the world, but you can't pay your tuition, that's also not going to work, right? So we really recognize the importance of that wraparound support. And we've really been growing that support ever since we started with the input and feedback from our students. So really recognizing that they are the experts on their own experiences and what they need. We have grown a lot over the past 10, or I guess 11 years. So 7 scholars back in 2011. We have 142 in our program now, and are looking to grow to 175 next year. So we're really, really excited about that growth. In terms of the key supports that we offer in our program, so every scholar in our program receives a scholarship, $1,200 a year if they're attending a community college, and $2,400 a year if they're attending a 4-year college. We also offer financial support in the form of emergency assistance, and that's something that we see as so crucial in making sure that our students are not dropping out of college because of a car repair or a rental emergency or a childcare voucher malfunction or something like that. There are so many situations that can come up. Often it might even be an emergency as small as $200, $300, but if you don't have $200, it might as well be $20 million if you don't have it, right? And so these stopgap measures are critically important, and actually something that we've seen increasingly the past year, just huge requests for emergency funding with the impact of inflation and some of the expiration of COVID related supports. So that's sort of the financial piece. And then we also have, of course, the emotional support. So every student in our program is matched with a mentor. Our model is that the mentor is actually providing the tuition funding for their scholars. So the idea is that this is a caring adult in the community who is not only invested in that scholar emotionally, but is also financially invested in that scholar's success. We also have caring case managers. We call them Hope coaches here at Generation Hope, who are there to support scholars with whatever they may need. And when I say anything, I mean anything. So I've had everything from, hey, how do I do my taxes? Which, don't worry, I'm not giving tax advice that I'm in no way qualified to give, but helping them find a resource for that kind of thing, to my child throwing tantrums, to I don't know what classes to take, to I'm dealing with a domestic violence situation. I need to get a protective order. So running the gamut, and not only doing that work ourselves, but connecting to partners who are experts in those things. So obviously not wanting to do things that we're not qualified for, but making sure that we're not just saying, oh, look online, I'm sure you'll find a food pantry, but really helping to walk with those students to that resource that they need. We also have mental health support. We brought on a mental health counselor onto our team in 2018, recognizing the critical importance of mental health support for our students and recognizing how much that was impacting our scholars. And so that's been huge for us. We also have really comprehensive career readiness programming. So we help to connect our students with paid internship opportunities. We do career exploration with them and career coaching. We have free tutoring, and we also really work to build social connections and really cohort mentality and cohort support for our scholars. So making sure that they don't feel as alone as young parents on college campuses. I'm going to briefly also touch on our Next Generation Academy program, which is our early childhood program. This is something that about a third of the students who are reflected in this survey also participated in our Next Generation Academy program. That is a program that is opt-in for our students. It has been offered since 2018 and was really in response to hearing from our students that they wanted more support around parenting. And we know the data tell us that the outcomes for the children of teen parents nationally are not great. And we knew, of course, that was not because teen parents don't care about being wonderful parents, but because it has to do with a lack of support, a lack of knowledge, and truly a lack of resources. And as a parent of a 4-year-old myself, I know how much that those resources and that village that you can lean on for support is incredibly important. So we started Next Generation Academy to really provide that support for our scholars. So they can opt into that. If they do, they receive evidence-based home visiting, free books, culturally relevant books, stipend to help with early childhood education or enrichment, and really connections to one another and the community. So as you can hopefully tell, our support does really wrap around, and we're really individualized, recognizing that every scholar in our program needs something slightly different. We're not telling them what they need, we're listening to them when they tell us what they need. And hopefully if you've read the report, you've seen some of the quotes about the impact of that support throughout their college careers for our scholars. In terms of how we conducted this survey, we emailed and texted our alumni. We find that we get much better responses over text in general, so we do a lot of texting. We also made personal calls, and big thank you to our program assistant, Angie, who did a lot of calling to try to encourage folks to fill that out. They did receive us a $20 gift card as a thank you for filling it out, and they could do it anonymously, but they did have to obviously put their name to get the incentive. So all of the students did do it with their names attached. And we had about 58 respondents out of our 95 alumni. So we were really pleased with that response rate, really give a pretty comprehensive look. So now I'm going to jump into some of the key findings of our survey, of our report, and I am happy to answer questions during the Q&A portion of our discussion, but you can feel free to also drop them in the chat now if you have them, and our wonderful behind the scenes folks will keep track of what those questions are, so you don't have to worry about trying to remember what your question was. So just to kind of give you an overview of the major findings, we found that the earnings for college for our teen parents who graduated and were reflected in this survey almost more than doubled after earning a college degree. Nearly a third of them continued on to advanced degrees. And I literally heard from an alumni 20 minutes ago saying she had just gotten into the MBA program at UMD. So that just went up a couple percentage points since 20 minutes ago. And they really recognized the value that a college degree brought to their lives. Not that it made their lives perfect, because we know that nothing is a magic wand, but it made a difference. And so we recognize that, while that degree is huge and makes a huge difference, there are systemic changes needed that will help to continue to help our scholars live the lives that they want and deserve. To break down into a little bit more detail some of the findings, in terms of the demographics, just to give you a sense of who the scholars are that were responding to this survey, the vast majority, about 83%, were single parents while in college. We find that reflects the general demographics for teen parents. I believe about 90% of them are single, unmarried. Almost 70% of them were first generation, so vast majority. And I think this is so important, really speaks to the intersecting identities of our scholars, right? That they're not just teen parents, but they're also almost exclusively students of color. They're large majority first gen. They're almost exclusively have low incomes in college. And, they're single parents. Many of them are immigrants or first generation Americans. So we're talking about many of these intersecting and interlocking systems that all can combine to create some real challenges and barriers. In terms of the racial demographics of the folks that filled out the survey, about 52% Black or African American, about 41% Hispanic or Latinx, and about 7% other, including Asian, white, and multiracial, as well as folks who chose not to identify. And that's pretty reflective of the composition of our scholars as a whole. In terms of where they went to school, we had students respond who went to 2-year colleges, 4-year private colleges, and 4-year public colleges, all of which are represented on our panel today. And we found that our Black graduates were about twice as likely to have gone to private universities as our Latinx graduates. And our Black graduates were also more likely to live in DC or Maryland, while our Latinx graduates were more likely to live in Virginia or Maryland. So that's just an interesting point when we look at some of the data and disaggregate in that way. In terms of the impact on income, so obviously income is not the only reason you go to college, but it's, of course, especially for our students, a big reason. So prior to college, about 90% of our scholars were making less than $30,000 annually. More than half of them are making less than $15,000 annually. So really low incomes on the whole going into college. And then the average income for those working full-time when they graduated is now more than $60,000. I should also say that our scholars on average that responded to this report were only about 3 years out of college. So $60,000, 3 years out of college, pretty solid. We were really, really happy to hear that and just to see the huge great growth. One thing that we did note was that number was about $15,000 higher for folks with bachelor's than folks with associate's degrees. So really reflecting, national data about the impact of a bachelor's versus an associate's, a big impact for both, but we definitely saw an increase in income for folks with bachelor's degrees. We found that about 60% of our graduates had at least some amount of debt at graduation. The average debt for those who borrowed was $25,000. But it's really important to note that our Black graduates were much more likely to have debt, about 75% of them, and their debt was larger, averaging about $30,000 than our Latinx graduates, who about 41% of them had debt at graduation and it averaged about $13,000. And, that reflects national data that Black student mothers carry the highest student debt load of any population. And, there could be many reasons for that, one of which, as we spoke to earlier, that our Black students are more likely to be at private colleges, and there are likely many other reasons as well. But that was really a notable difference there. One thing that we did know was that about 50% of our scholars, our alumni, are accessing public assistance. And there was, again, a differential between our associate's degree and bachelor's degree holders. So about 73% of associate's degree holders versus about 51% of bachelor's degree holders accessing public assistance, most commonly Medicaid. By far, that was by far the most common. And our Black grads were more likely, about 63%, than Latinx grads, about 46%, to be using public assistance. And I do think that it's, just notable where we are. I know not everyone in the audience today is in the DC metro area, but we are in an area where it is extremely expensive to live. So we really recognize that some of these barriers we talk about around affordable housing and affordable childcare and all of those things impact even somebody making, $65,000 a year is still potentially not in, comfortable financial position. The MIT living wage calculator shows that a single parent of one child would need to earn about $88,000 a year to live comfortably in the DC metro region, which is a lot. So that was definitely something that we saw reflected. And when we speak about the need for systemic change and the ability for families to, live on a salary, we really see that reflected here. In terms of employment, we found that about 80% of our graduates were employed full-time, which was really, really great. And many of those who were not employed had chosen not to work because they were caring for children or in graduate school, or was working part-time, they're in graduate school. So we found that out of a year after they graduated, for the students that had been out of college at least a year, about 88% were either employed full-time and or in graduate school. So really great numbers there. We did find a differential by major here. And I speak with no disrespect to the humanities. I was an English and dance major myself, so I love the humanities majors, but we did find that 100% of our business, criminal justice, STEM, and allied health majors were employed full-time. And for the other majors, so humanities, general studies, things like that, was about 61% full-time employment. So we did see a pretty big differential there. And our associate's degrees holders were less likely to be employed full-time at 73% than our bachelor's degree holders at 81%. In terms of the perception of college, so we didn't just want to know, okay, how much money are you making? We wanted to know, how do you feel about your college degree? How do you feel about the time and effort you spent getting it? We know that our scholars did something really difficult and really incredible by getting their college degrees. And we wanted to know, looking back, how do you feel about that and what you did there? And what we found was that about 90% of them cited at least one positive outcome from their degree. So that could be that they feel like it was worth the money, that it was essential to getting to where they are today, that they feel like their children are more likely to go to college because they went to college. About a third of them said that someone in their family had been inspired to go to college because of them attaining their degree, which I really loved. That's something that, is kind of not something we always think about. We think really very much about parent-child, but it's not just a parent and a child, right? We're talking about a community that is now seeing someone go to college and complete. And the fact that 70% of them are first-generation college students means that many of our students are not necessarily surrounded by folks who may not have had the opportunity to go to college. So I really loved that. And one thing, again, we did see that non-STEM majors were more likely to wish they chose a different major. So one of the things that came out for me as a practitioner, as well as and my team, was really thinking about advising, right? So how do we support students in choosing a major that they love and that's going to help them be employed, right? Because we don't want to say everyone go be a computer science major, because that's not the right choice for everyone. And we really want to make sure that our students are pursuing things that they are passionate about. And we also want to make sure that they're doing that eyes wide open, that they know what the outcomes are. And that if they are pursuing something that's maybe not as, directly walking into a career path, that they are really thinking early about, okay, what are the internships I need to get? What are the, certifications I need to do to make sure that when I get out of school that I'm able to find really solid full-time employment. So that was definitely something that we saw as well. And then again, as I said earlier, we had many scholars continuing into graduate school, all master's degrees so far. So we had a number of a lot of MSWs, so a lot of future social workers in our cohort, some Masters of Public Administration, MBAs, and some other master's degrees as well. So about a third either working on currently or have already earned a master's degree in our sample. So with that, I am really excited to introduce some folks who can speak in a much more personal way about their experiences with college and graduating. So it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists and moderator today. Our moderator is Generation Hope board member, Dr. Monica Brown, who is the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs at Montgomery College. Dr. Brown is a champion for student parents at Montgomery College and has been an incredible advocate for Generation Hope as a higher ed leader and a member of our board of directors over the past 5 years. So thank you, Monica, for doing this with us. And then I'm excited to introduce our alumni panelists as well. They will be sharing more about their journeys during the panel. So for now, I will just say that we are really proud and excited to welcome 5 of our amazing alumni for this discussion: Carla Rocha, Mercedes Stokes, Anna Vasquez, Syeedah White, and Joseph Yusuf. And I will turn it over to them.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Caroline. Such rich information. And now that we've heard the findings and themes that have come out of the report, we get to hear the stories behind the data. And that's the exciting part of why we're here today. So it's my pleasure to start this discussion with asking the panelists to introduce yourself by sharing which school or schools you graduated from and when you graduated, as well as your major, and a little bit about your child or children. And I'll ask each panelist to take just about a minute to answer. Let's start with Carla.
Hello, my name is Carla Rocha. I am a former board member of Generation Hope and an alumni. I graduated from Northern Virginia Community College in 2016, and I graduated from George Mason in 2019. My degree was in integrative studies with a concentration of human rights and social change. I have 3 beautiful boys, Louis, who's 11, Malcolm, who's 6, and a new baby, Paolo, who is 5 months.
Thank you, Carla. Next up, Mercedes.
Hello, my name is Mercedes Stokes. I attended Prince George's Community College. This past May, I graduated where I received my Associates of Science in Forensic Science. Also, I have 2 kids. I have a son who is 7 and he attends a Spanish immersion school, and my daughter who is 2 who just started a dance team.
Thank you, Mercedes. I'll invite Anna to speak.
Hi, my name is Anna Vasquez. I graduated from Northern Virginia Community College in 2018 and then George Mason University in 2020 with a nursing degree. I have 2 boys, Samuel, who is 13, and Julian, who is 10.
Thank you, Anna. Next, Syeedah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Syeedah White. I attended Prince George's Community College and received my associates in 2018. I received my bachelor's of science from Bowie State University in 2020. And now I'm back at Bowie State University in their master's program in school counseling, hoping to achieve that by the next 1.5 years. And I have a daughter, Reagan, who is 8, and she recently started 2nd grade.
Thank you, Syeedah. And last but certainly not least, Joseph.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Yusuf. I went to Howard University, graduated from, I went to Howard University, graduated in 2019. My major was media, journalism, and film with a concentration in audio production while also minoring in electronic studio art. I have 1 child, my daughter. She's currently 9, about to be 10. And the best way to describe our relationship, she's my heart, she's my soul, and also my headache.
Well, thank you all for sharing a bit about yourselves. And as we go through some of the questions, you'll hear more from our illustrious panel of alums. The second question that I have, and I'll ask a couple of you to speak to this. One of the things that this report clearly illustrates is the economic benefit of a college degree. Earning a degree more than doubled the earnings of teen parents. That's significant. Can you tell us how you've seen the economic benefits play out in your own life? And how have those benefits impacted your children? I'll start by asking Anna to answer the question.
Hi. So by earning the nursing degree, I was able to actually go into the workforce fairly easily. I graduated in May of 2020, and then I started my nursing job July of 2020 during a global pandemic. But it's been a challenging year. But economically, it helped me immensely. I mean, before I had to live in a shared bedroom with my two boys and I, because that was the only rent I could actually afford. Fast forward to now 2022, I was able to save up for a down payment, and I just bought my first home this year. So now my boys have their own room and I have my own room. Also, I no longer depend on government assistance. I'm fully financially free. I provide their own health insurance. I'm able to, I save up now for a 401k, and I have all possible through a college degree.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing. And then I'll ask Carla if she'll answer the question.
Yeah, so I have been moving up the corporate ladder. I currently work for Jacobs, and I am able to support my family of 5, and also my mother-in-law, who is currently living with us, and my boys each have their own room, which is great, and something I didn't have growing up. And so I consider them spoiled from my standards, I guess. I'd be able to be fully financially independent. So I guess that means no government assistance, although obviously that could be necessary at times.
Great, thank you, Carla. My next question, and I'll ask Joseph and Mercedes to prepare to answer this question. Are there other ways that you and your family have benefited from your college degree that are not monetary? Joseph, I'll ask you to answer first.
That's a difficult question, because my response goes right back to money. But it's like money buys the experiences and not just the happiness. To elaborate, I would say outside of the money, I'll say having a college degree has definitely given my daughter the confidence to think far ahead after high school. If you ask her this very moment where college she wants to go to, she'll shout from her stomach, Howard University. And I think being a kid that grew up not having that mindset, to see that with my child is a very, very amazing accomplishment. And I think outside of just actual like blood family, I think just the conversations I have with my friends, them saying that they're inspired, that they want to go to school and see what they can do. So I'll say outside of the money aspect, I think just being a graduate has definitely just, I don't know, the benefits have just been, I don't know, it's just too great to specify.
Well, it gives confidence, and obviously you set a great example for your daughter and others to follow. Mercedes.
I would say outside of the monetary benefit, I would say me being able to network with other people that I feel like if I didn't attend college, I wouldn't have the access to. Me being able to have resources to like put down as a reference because I know people, but just being able to have somebody that I can go to speak to, or somebody that can put me in a direction, has been very beneficial to me. It amounts the same as far as like making money, but also putting my foot in a door where I would never thought I would have been.
Excellent. Thank you both. Okay, so we know that completing college as a young parent is rare. Fewer than 2% of teen mothers earn a degree before age 30. Seeing in this report that nearly a third of teen parents who earn a bachelor's degree go on to pursue advanced degrees shows with the proper supports, there is no stopping young parents. Each of you are evidence of that. Syeedah, I know you're in graduate school right now. Can you tell us why it was important for you to continue your education?
Yes, it was very important for me to continue my education for plenty of different reasons. The main reason being able to provide a quality life for my daughter and myself, because the higher you go, the more opportunities you get. And, when you step through those doors and get those opportunities, you gotta grab them head on. Another reason is because I like being an inspiration to those around me and those that don't know me, like the students like myself. One of the main reasons why I chose to become a school counselor is because, of course, I became a parent when I was 16. And I wanted students like that to know that, they will at least have somebody in their corner who understands, and they will at least know that they'll have the resources that they need. And, with the support and the right group of people, you can achieve anything.
That is so inspirational. Thank you. While a college degree clearly unlocks higher earnings for teen parents, it's not a magic wand. The report found that even among teen parent graduates working full-time, 50% are accessing some form of public assistance, and that Black teen parent graduates were more likely than Hispanic, Latinx graduates to be accessing public assistance at 63% and 46% respectively. What hurdles do you continue to face even as a college graduate? And I'll invite Anna to respond.
As a college graduate, I think I still, even 2 years in the nursing career, I still suffer from like imposter syndrome. There are many times where I just can't believe I'm a nurse based on my background. I mean, I'm a first generation college student. I'm the only one, well, except my brother, we're the only ones who have college degrees. So, and everyone else works in like non-traditional like work, like hands-on work. And so it's hard sometimes to like explain to my family the struggles I go through work, both physically and mentally. So, and then I can't relate sometimes to my work like colleagues because they have a different life than I grew up in. So suffering from imposter syndrome is still really real to me.
And thank you, Anna, for keeping it real. Mercedes, would you like to respond?
I would say something that I face even as a college graduate would be like, I'm scared of failure. Like, I know I've completed college, and like before getting my degree, I always looked at like jobs in my career field and said, once I get my degree, I'll be making money. Once I apply, they're going to accept me. But some jobs, you can have all the qualifications and they'll still say no to you. It's not that something's wrong with you, but it's just like you wasn't a right candidate. But it doesn't mean like give up because they said no, because there's a lot of other jobs out there that will gladly take you and all the qualifications. So just hearing no, but getting over that hurdle is something that I continue to face.
Yes, indeed. It is the reality of, the lived experience, and it's great that you've been able to grow from it. And now I'll ask Joseph to please share his experience.
I think the challenges that I face as a college grad, I think it may be more personal, but I would say definitely maintaining consistency and happiness. I think graduating in 2019, I had this big ambition to conquer the world. And then that following year to be put on pause and hold. I think a lot of us may have, dealt with the traumas, but a lot of us have definitely benefited from it. I think for me, it led me to just develop a more, what's the word I want to use? I guess I'll reframe that sentence. It led me to think, what am I doing? What else could I be doing in this world? How can I better my future now? Because what I have now is okay, but I don't want okay. I want greatness.
That is so inspirational. And as you all are inspiring us all and the attendees of today's webinar They would like to know what they can do to make a college degree more attainable for teen parents, particularly here in the DC region. What advice do you have for education leaders like myself and policymakers here today? I'll ask Syeedah to respond first.
I think the main way that would be able to happen is just making resources more attainable, obtainable for young parents, especially those like coming right out of high school, not knowing whether or not they do want to go to college, and then those that do decide they want to go get that degree. It's kind of hard, and like me, my school counselors, they gave us those college visits and stuff like that. However, it's kind of like everybody else was able to get those resources that they needed to go to college, but I kind of wasn't. And I found Generation Hope literally like a year after I had already started college. And when talking with Caroline and Nicole and other staff, I realized like, wow, like I missed out on a lot of resources. So making those resources obtainable, especially so the staff in the public schools and private schools can give them to the students.
Thank you, Syeedah. And Carla, would you like to respond?
Yes, so I will echo both Syeedah's sentiment. Resources are really important. But also I think there's a very important financial aspect to going to college that is talked about a lot right now as far as loan forgiveness. I was fortunate enough to not have any loans while going to college because of Generation Hope and other scholarships. But that is not the case for many of my peers. So I think that speaking to a financial advisor and making that accessible for students, because it really isn't ethical to have students take out private loans or even federal loans that they can't afford to pay back once they graduate college. Because even if you find a job making $60,000 a year, that simply isn't enough to pay your student loans and also be able to invest in your future. Also, although college has changed my life in many ways and have provided resources, I do think there needs to be additional help and insight on how do we make students become innovators. It's great to work for a company, but what if wouldn't it be even better in some cases, depending on your personality, to start your own business? And how would that feel? And I think Joseph kind of touched on that a bit, as he doesn't want to be okay or fine. He wants to be great. Mm-hmm. And I think for many student parents, after we have made this achievement, it feels amazing. The first couple of years, you can say I graduated and I was a teen parent. But that's not the end of my story, and I want more. I don't want to just survive. I want to thrive. It's not enough just to get off government assistance. So how can we leverage student parents to do other great things while they're pursuing their degrees?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Carla. And now we want to open it up to the audience for questions. Would you like to ask a question of the panelists? Please drop your questions in the chat, and I'll start with some questions that have come in. Can you identify any unique barriers or challenges that could have derailed you from graduating? Who would like to answer that question? Carla, please.
I wanted to give someone else the opportunity to speak, but I think if I didn't have certain supports, like if my partner didn't help me take care of my children while I was in class, or I didn't have an office job where they were flexible to let me go to class, it would have been much more complicated to graduate for me. Additionally, if there weren't any night classes or weekend classes at Nova, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So I think those were the some of the barriers.
Thank you, Carla. Would anyone else like to respond to you? Yes, Anna, please.
Similar to Carla, thankfully I kind of, with the help of Generation Hope, found resources to help me pay for my school and also pay for like necessities I had. So for the 2 years that I was in nursing school, there was no way I could hold down a full-time job and take care of my kids with my school load. But thanks to help, I took the 2 years off to just focus on being a mom and a student, and still had my needs kind of met.
Excellent. Thank you. Would anyone else like to respond before I move to the next question? Yes, Syeedah, and then Mercedes. Thank you.
My situation was financial, like Anna said. There were like many nights and days that I cried because I thought I was gonna have to leave school because, you know, I couldn't afford to pay for it. And like I said, I didn't find out about Generation Hope until almost a year after. And there was one point in time I was making $8.25 an hour, and I kind of still had to come out of my pocket and, you know, stretch my dollars to pay for my tuition, and then also trying to, you know, pay for my car and other things that I had. And Generation Hope, even then when I was still kind of having those financial issues, they still pointed me to those resources that I can utilize to, you know, get things covered.
Okay, thank you, Syeedah. Mercedes, I'll ask you to be the last person to respond to this question. We have several others that we'd like to get to. Thank you.
Okay, before I got into Generation Hope, I went through like a depression phase, and I really don't have family that I can like go to or depend on. But I was speaking with like an advisor, and she told me to go ahead and just apply for the Generation Hope Scholar Program. And when I did it, it was just like I had like a brand new family like to help, because I was in a state where it's like I'm almost finished, but I'm ready to give up. But because of Generation Hope, it kind of made me want to speed up the process and, you know, finish, even though I thought I wasn't going to finish because all that I was going through.
Yes, having the resources and people who can help remove barriers, and an organization like Generation Hope certainly helps and has done that for many students, as our alums have shared today. I'm going to move to another question. As you've heard about barriers that our alums faced, let's switch it up and have you tell us about what supports in college had the most impact on helping you be successful in your journey, and who at the university or college had the greatest impact on your persistence to degree completion.
Could I answer that?
Yes, please, Joseph.
So I know we're saying on campus, but I feel like it's only best to do this. So my best resource was Generation Hope, due to the resources of them just being very consistent with the one-on-one mentoring, the opportunities to attend, you know, weekend workshops. Those opportunities made me a better college student, because if it wasn't for those opportunities, I guarantee you I would have still been in my bubble as an introvert. And then when I think about the actual resources on campus, it's only due to the actual professors that I communicated my new fatherhood to. If it wasn't for that and some of them being receptive, I probably would have just kept that to myself or as a secret. But for those professors that I told and shared that with, they looked out for me in ways that I couldn't imagine. From professors to the staff members in the bursar's office to additional scholarships and other money. I'm just, you know, grateful.
Thank you, Joseph. Would anyone else like to respond? Okay, Carla,
I
please.
just want to say really quick, I guess shout out to the advisors that are super creative with scheduling and have tips and tricks up their sleeve to kind of make it work when you're trying to finish your degree those last couple months.
Yes, Yes, shout out to the advisors and others who have supported and continue to support parenting students, including, of course, Generation Hope and the wonderful resources offered and the support given to our scholars. Let me ask you a different question. Do you think parenting students are being recognized and included in larger conversations about higher education, or do you still think this population is invisible? Syeedah.
You kind of asked my favorite question. Me personally, at least on my campus, hopefully I don't get backlash for saying this. I feel like student parents are practically still invisible because there's a lot of things, being a student parent, there's a lot of things on campus that you notice kind of like aren't made for us. And recently at Bowie, actually, I became a part of a group called University Innovation Fellows. And one of our like main missions was to get more student parent inclusive groups on campus. And I can't really say the other part. So you guys will kind of probably have to read about it in the future. But we're trying to do big things for student parents at Bowie, because as a former undergrad student and a current graduate student, you know, there's a lot for them to make up for. You know, we don't have a lot of access to, you know, childcare and stuff on campus. And, you know, again, we didn't have those student parent support groups. I didn't even know that other students at Bowie were student parents until I went to Generation Hope. So, you know, for so long, you know, myself or those other students probably thought we were the only ones. So having those groups on campus for undergraduate and even graduate students is good, because, you know, with these 6,000 plus students on campus, I'm not the only one. You know, you don't feel left out.
Thank you, Syeedah. And at this time, I want to thank you all for being so transparent and so open to sharing your stories. And I will turn it over to our esteemed CEO and founder of Generation Hope, Miss Nicole Lynn Lewis.
Thank you so much, Monica, and thank you to our panelists. This is just exactly as Monica said, these voices give life to the data, and why it's so important for us to be sharing this with the world, sharing this with the field, why we have to make sure more young parents have the supports that they need to not only graduate from college, but first and foremost to graduate from high school, then move to college. And then we need to really do that systemic change work to make sure that they have what they need to not just survive, as Carla said, but to thrive. And as Joseph touched on, we want more. You know, we don't want to just be okay. We want to be doing amazing. We want to take over the world. And so what do we need to shift? What do we need to change? So it's so important that people hear the real voices behind these major findings, and your willingness to share has made such a difference. We can't thank you enough, each of you, for being with us today and for being so open and honest, and Monica for beautifully just guiding us through that conversation. So how does this report create the change that I just mentioned? At Generation Hope, it's a part of our systemic change work. It's a part of our strategy to take the real life experiences of our scholars and alums into our policy and advocacy work here in the DC region, but also at the state and federal level, and in the work that we do all over the country. We want to have it be integrated into our technical assistance work with colleges and universities here in the DC region and all over the country through our Family U program. But it also creates change by becoming a useful tool in your work. And we really do hope that it helps you advocate for more supports for young parents within your organizations or your institution, or helps you ensure that there are policies in place that truly remove barriers to their educational success, or helps you look at your research and your data with a young parent lens, which often isn't done often enough. In the report, you are going to find lessons and takeaways for both practitioners and policymakers. And we hope that you take some time to look through those and really think about how you can integrate these insights, this data, the voices, the stories that you heard today into your work, because it's going to take all of us from all different sectors really being champions for young parents in their educational pursuits, and really being champions for equity and systemic change to create the world that we want to see, especially for young families. So we invite you to really take some time with those lessons learned and think about how you can apply this to your work each and every day. We do want to invite you to, if you'd like to engage with us in this work, we have a ton of ways to get involved. I mentioned we invite you to ask us about our policy framework at Generation Hope, our focus areas, what we're talking to policymakers about, how we're elevating the student parent voice in that work. There's a ton of ways for us to work together. We're partnering with different policy and advocacy organizations in that work. If you're a college or you're in a university or a college and you're interested in your own student parent work, we are available to help assist you in thinking through how do you create that family-friendly campus that is ready and willing to support these students when they come to you. So there's a lot of ways to do that, and we invite you to get involved. And then on our direct service side, if you're here in the DC region, we have a ton of hands-on opportunities for you to get involved. From mentoring our students, we have a group mentoring program right now through our Next Generation Academy, which we call Resource Families. We're actively recruiting groups of mentors to work together and to be paired with one of our scholar families. So we invite you to learn more about that. But tutoring and career readiness support, those are also opportunities that you can do virtually. So we invite you to learn more about ways to get involved with our national work as well as our direct service work here in the DC region. And if you are interested in any of those things, or you want to talk more about the report, the data that you've heard about today, please feel free to reach out to us. We're going to show our contact information. We are really active on social media. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. And you can also visit our website at generationhope.org. You can also email us at info@generationhope.org. Thank you so much, everyone, for spending some time with us this afternoon. We know you're busy, but we really appreciate you taking the time to learn more. And we look forward to continuing to work with you on behalf of young parents and student parents. So thank you so much.